Welcome to Team Perry's Step Out of Line podcast, featuring co-hosts Perry and Lori Finkelstein. Together, they explore, meet, and share inspirational stories with guests who have made a positive impact in today's world. This podcast resonates with our hope to make this world a better place one step at a time through love, acceptance, and uplifting conversations.
In a way, I feel like my whole life has been a little bit out of the lines. I'm a career bass player and I happen to be the breadwinner. I don't know if I would have preferred it that way necessarily. I could have in another life married some sort of a doctor or lawyer or something and been very okay with that. But the way it's arranged right now, I play music and I feed four mouths and a cat mouth. Every day I wake up and I'm kind of like mystified by this whole thing. I just never thought it was supposed to work out like this, like any other 17, 18-year-old kid had the same aspirations of kind of being like a rock star, played an instrument. And that's all I really cared about. I didn't have the foresight then to be thinking about family and buying a home and paying bills. Somehow, even through my own mistakes and short-sightedness sometimes and lack of dreaming big, I was able to end up in this position where I'm kind of making it work playing a bass guitar. And that's unbelievable to me. I have a very outside of the box job. I'm really grateful for that. I think we're all unique. Well, I think a lot of people that know me would say, Kyle's an interesting dude. My hobby is I run long distance ultra marathon races in the mountains. I've been doing that for 10 years now. I've been an ultra runner. That's actually one of my very few hobbies. Other than that, I read a little bit, I play some video games from time to time. I have another journey with my daughter who is on the autism spectrum, and she's fairly moderate. So I think some people hear moderate and they think mild. She has a genuine disability. At the same time, it's kind of entered me and my wife into this whole other life, this whole other world of some of the wonderful and challenging parts of raising a kid that's on the spectrum, folks that are not as able or dealing with a special situation in their lives, and unique challenges to that. So that's been another area where I've had to learn a lot and be comfortable being outside the lines. There's things that we encounter every day with our daughter that are just, you have these fleeting voices of, man, I just wonder, I know for a fact that not many of my friends, deal with this, whatever the situation is. It takes, as I'm sure you guys know, and especially as a parent, Harry, your own challenges, and Lori, you as mom, it takes a lot of courage for both of you on a given day to be comfortable in your own skin and to, there's that mix of acceptance and bravery, just kind of getting through the day. I think for anyone, but especially if you have some unique challenges or unique things going on, between playing music for a living, being an ultra runner, which is a strange and painful obsession. Some people would say a foolish one. And then my life as dad and autism dad. Yeah, I have a pretty unique situation. I also have attention deficit disorder, fairly moderate. I've been dealing with that my whole life. And sort of the typical insecurities and the journey I think we're all on to finding comfort in our own skin. I feel honored with the life that I have. I have to rise to being an ambassador of what I've been given and to try to make the best out of it on a daily basis. I'm constantly looking out for the little threads that kind of unite us as human beings. And one of those things is suffering. Sometimes it's suffering that you signed up for, unbeknownst to you. And other times it's the, suffering that life has kind of laid at your feet. And, there's always the big why I do those things. And the big why is because on top of my ADHD, I've always struggled with anxiety since I was a little kid. One of my first memories are just being scared, a lot of things. I set out on this journey when I was in my early 20s. I was just kind of, going through the motions and partying a lot. My only concerns when I woke up was just basically rock and roll, chase girls, go party tonight. Like that's all I was living for, myself. My grades were slipping. I was kind of in and out of school, and I was working a little bit, to be fair. I wasn't a total, slacker, but at some point I did start feeling this impulse that if I didn't kind of uh, get it together, then I wouldn't ever live up to my full potential. And so one of the things that I started to do was, someone like me had always been kind of afraid of discipline and structure. Those things kind of pressed up against my anxiety, and I just didn't like the way they felt. And so I lived this very like loose life with no rules. And after a while, I had enough of that, and I started getting quite depressed and noticing that I just wasn't living up to what I thought was my potential.
What would you say the age was, where you really said, "Okay, I'm good at this, and this is what I'm doing." Like, how old were you?
I would just use any vice as an excuse to not do the work for myself. Didn't want to admit the ADHD thing that I've been hearing since I was a kid. I didn't really know about the anxiety yet, or I would kind of mask it with drugs and alcohol and with partners and, like my dating life and all that stuff. I just used everything as medicine, basically. When I was 29, I got sober for about 2 years. It was during that period where my wife and I, we had dated off and on. That was when we finally got back together, and I had the clear enough head to realize, like, oh my God, this is an incredible woman, and I've known her since I was, 17 or 18 years old, and I've tried everyone else. Like, I don't want to do life with anyone but her. So I remember specifically, I was 29 years old when I had kind of put the partying down, reconnected with my now wife. The running started to give me some discipline, and that became something that I just started looking forward to every single day, to just go out and do something that was what they call type 2 fun. It's not fun in the moment, it's kind of fun when you look back on. And the other thing was that it helped me to start looking at suffering and struggle and as something that is a muscle that you can train to be a little more tolerant of. So when I first got into running, it was very shallow, to kind of to lose weight and get my stuff together and kind of like uh, have some structure. And then very quickly, as I started, I so like you guys, I ran a 5K at the local zoo in Nashville, and then the next challenge was like, oh, what's next? Oh, I bet I could run a half marathon, so sign up for a half marathon, and I ran a few of those. And then I started seeing the full marathon people and thinking, man, they just look tougher than me. And it was right about that time I started reading a book called Ultra Marathon Man by a guy named Dean Karnassus, who's a kind of a legendary ultra runner from the 90s. And this is before most people had really even heard of an ultra marathon. I picked this book up and started somewhere around my first marathon and started reading about these people that would run 100 miles or more without stopping. I thought the marathon was the ultimate human challenge, that your heart would explode if you went past 26 miles, right? That's kind of like what we all grew up with. It's sort of an urban legend. I started finding out all, these people, this whole underground society of people that would run through the night and well into the next day and do these crazy distances. And they would deal with all this, foot blisters and nausea and throwing up and, falling asleep while they were running through the night, and wildlife encounters and broken bones. And like, something inside of me just continually was looking for the next challenge to rise to. And I think I just knew inherently that it would be good for someone like me that was undisciplined, afraid, insecure, and unfocused to pick something like an ultra marathon. I figured, like, man, if you could run a 100-mile race, you would really have to have your stuff together, like, to finish one of these. I had been a runner. I dabbled in running and kind of gotten serious about running even before I got serious about some other things. But I think that was one of the tools that I used first to kind of like, well, see, if I can run marathons, if I can run ultra marathons, like that, I can get my stuff together. In that period where I really like just changed things completely, and I got a lot of help. I did therapy. I finally, started either taking medications or at least doing work on the anxiety condition and the ADHD. The medication side of it has come in and out. Like there are seasons where, it's helpful and seasons where I feel fine without it. We got married like a year or two later, and then we had my daughter soon after that. And so it began this series of events where I kind of had to grow up. At this point, I've run over 17 official races, official ultramarathon races, with a few marathons in there and a few half marathons. Something like 20 or 30 unofficial marathon as far as like an ultra marathon training distance, like where I'll go run 30 or 40 miles. During this last race, I had to kind of rewind. Now I'm kind of entering middle age and I'm starting to kind of think about why am I out here? Why am I doing this? The nausea, the discomfort. And that's something that we all as first of all, as runners, we all kind of like we all know those feelings. But then in life offers you so many, well, you can call them chances or you can just call it, cards. But life is just objectively tough. And, for me, the running, it was a vehicle towards unlocking more of my potential and becoming more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that has, I mean, literally changed my life. And it's in weird ways, I mean, it's gotten me ready for things like autism and things like career stressors and things that make you afraid. When I first got the call to do Katy Perry while I was with Kelly, I mean, I spent a few years really uncomfortable and really afraid that I would, piss someone off or lose one of those two jobs or, trying to figure out a way to make that work and to keep putting food on the table for the family is really like an achievement I'm very proud of. And there's no ego in it for me. It's just it was another puzzle I kind of had to solve, and a lot of the tenacity to kind of keep problem solving, keep trying to come back day after day and figure out how to make this all work. I think I got a lot of that through my running uh, practice. So now it's gone beyond running. It's just I look my mental health stuff head on with the ADHD and anxiety. I meditate every day. I look parenthood head on. I've come to the place where I'm more comfortable, not only with my daughter's disability, but like I walk down the street, or if I'm taking my son to school and I see kids that have special needs, my heart just glows now. Like I used to be just being fully transparent. When you're a young man and you have no experience or you don't even have kids yet, I would cower from that. I didn't want to deal with, even really like acknowledging that like people can be born with different stacks of cards and cards laid out in different ways. It was just too heavy for me. Whereas now I'm able to kind of see all of that I wasn't able to see before. And now I see kids walking into special needs or line at my daughter's school, and some of them can't walk, and I just smile because I've gotten lucky enough to be led into this whole other world that a lot of people aren't aware either exists or they don't want to acknowledge the humanity of all these people in this situation. And it's just helped me to just see full humans everywhere I go. Some of the nonverbal kids that are in my daughter's class, I'm really lucky that my daughter can speak. It's a little bit broken. It's kind of hard to understand for most people. We can kind of understand her, 80% of the time. But a lot of her classmates can't speak, and it's even helped me to kind of like to see the humanity in each one of those kids and realize that like there's actually a full human being in there that has a full range of experiences and emotions and is communicating in their own way, kind of strayed from running, but all of that stuff has kind of helped me to just be able to do the hard things and to rise to these little moments throughout the day where I used to kind of be afraid. So I'm grateful for that. I mean, I have a long way to go. I never feel like I've arrived. I'm not perfect. I never will be, but I can see the journey I'm on, and I'm really grateful for that.
So your wife must be very special also.
She's really the rock and the backbone of the family. There's all these things, especially with our kids, schooling, dental, medical, my daughter's IEPs and the things that she needs to
Right.
find care. And good positioning at our schools.
I'm thinking you're an ultra marathoner, but I'm thinking your wife is much tougher because if she could get through an IE meeting at
Yes.
you have nothing on her.
She wins, yeah.
Yeah, I know. She
No,
can
I
for
don't
sure.
disagree with you because I've only been to her first IEP meeting, and it was a lot because I'm busy working. For the most part, a lot of that stuff, as you know, Lori, does fall on her.
Being a parent of a child who has extraordinary needs, it always was, I have no choice. What else
Mm.
are you to do? You have to take care of things and you have to do what you have to do. And of course I have to rise to the occasion because who else is going to do it?
On a day-to-day basis. And that doesn't mean, like you said, people, oh, you're so brave and blah blah. She resents that a lot. I think there are moments where it's like, I don't feel like being brave today, but you have to. And she constantly rises to those challenges and she meets them, and then you know on a good day we hit the sack and we sleep really hard, and she gets a back rub, and we have our QT and get up and do it all over again. But I just became fascinated with sort of the art of struggling and how to struggle with grace, or even if it's ungraceful, how do you move through life and keep learning and keep rising to different challenges with the deck that you've been given. I really wouldn't change a thing about the way my life has laid out and been going. And obviously there are future hurdles down the road, but I just try to take every opportunity to kind of test out my resilience with adversity and fear and challenges and all this stuff because they're not going to go anywhere.
If you weren't a musician, did you have any backup plans?
Again, I hadn't really delved into my ADHD or learned how to kind of what some of my tendencies are. When I was younger, everything was just by the seat of my pants and very sporadic. And one of the things that someone with my type of brain deals with impulsivity. I learned that you can flip impulsivity to be a really beautiful thing when it comes to being creative and kind of adjusting on the fly. But when I was young, everything was just kind of impulsive for the most part. I just didn't listen to people saying like, "Oh, you need a backup plan." Once I discovered music and I discovered playing bass and singing and writing and all that, I mean, that was really the only path forward. Later, as a young man with kids, there's a low season in my career where things were really slow. Right before I got the Kelly job, actually, and I had gotten a side job at a running store just for extra income, and it was something I enjoyed. And there was a brief period of time where I considered being a professional running shoe sales rep. And actually, when times get tough, I still kind of think about it. I'm like, I mean, I know I could do a great job selling running gear. Like I'm a natural running salesman. So, and there's no shame in having a backup plan or having other things you're good at. When I was younger, I thought that was such a admission of weakness that you would ever consider not going all the way with your passion. But with kids and the realities of life and juggling jobs and stuff, like it's very smart to have a plan B. You don't have to keep it in the forefront. You can have a secret plan B that you don't tell anybody about or even entertain that much, but it doesn't hurt to have one.
People who know you from way back then, and I don't know, I assume you're driving a minivan or something right now. They just laugh at you, saying, "My God, what happened to Kyle? He used to be
It's
so cool."
yeah, he was so rock and roll. Funniest thing is like when I was cool, when I look back now as an adult, I mean, I just don't feel like I actually was that cool. I was chain smoking cigarettes. I was hungover every day. I was making a lot of bad decisions, just in many aspects of my life. But yeah, I kind of fit the model of like I thought I was a rock star, and that's kind of what I would seem like, I guess. I feel like I'm a lot cooler now. That most days I'm fairly proud of. Any friends that would have said that now they're either my age or just a little younger than me or just are already a little older than me. And now you're kind of the odd man out if you don't have kids or you don't have career stress or whatever. If you're still kind of living that like nocturnal young man or young woman's life at the bar, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'd rather be where I am right now. My dad always told me when I was young, you hear all these adages about hard work and preparation meets opportunity. So he was big on that. There are some people out there that prepare, do all the work. They're insane musicians, and they never really get, for one reason or another, the opportunity. I was really lucky that my story is kind of twofold. I was pretty good from the beginning. Like I had sort of a natural, it clicked with the music and with the bass guitar. But I also put in a lot of practice time, and I went to school and I studied music, and didn't graduate, and then came back and then didn't graduate again. But at least the second time, I was a way better and more interested student. For the first 20 years of my career, I had some highs and I had a lot of lows, and I kind of hovered in sort of the middle of the spectrum as far as what a successful musician is considered. There was an inflection point about 5 years ago where I did get an opportunity with Kelly, and I was ready for it. I was a really good player by that point, and I had a lot more wisdom, and I had a lot of failure under my belt, and I was ready for this when the opportunity presented itself. I had just had a daughter, just gotten married, and I was focused on that job, laser focused. So when Jason gave me the call, and my first day at work, it wasn't really an audition, but it was an audition. It was like, he called me basically for a taping. Hey, we're gonna play these 8 songs. I think I had a week to prepare or something like that. And I walked in knowing that it was a life changing opportunity, and that it was my opportunity to lose. The first few years in that job, I mean, I was like almost overly focused. The band kept trying to get me to kind of lighten up and not take everything so seriously. I knew what was at stake. I knew deep down that I was on that level to be playing with the best in the world. And I'd always known that. And sometimes I didn't believe it because of the circumstances or because of whatever letdown I had just experienced. But deep down, I always knew that like I could do it. I could play with legendary artists at the top of the game and hold my own with anyone. And it was through those opportunities and being ready for them, and like I said earlier, going through the motions with the intimidation and the fear, and even after I really kind of worked my way into the Kelly world and had pretty firm footing there, and I got the call to do Katy. It was many years later. We were already doing the Kelly show, and I was working with Katy and taking some other like bigger calls. And I actually had to do some therapy on imposter syndrome. There were days that it was so hard to believe that my subconscious wouldn't even accept it. Actually, Katy called me out one time after our first gig. She gave me a hug and just said, "Oh my gosh, you did an amazing job." And I said something like, it'll be better next time, because I'm that's how I am with myself. I'm always looking to be better. Perry, you can identify, right? And I can, so, and Katy looked at me, she was walking away, and she turned around and she said, "No, you heard I'm not good enough and you need to work on that shit." That's what she said to me. So she had just given me this compliment and told me I did a fantastic job. I came in and nailed it. I heard something different. Apparently, she had just done that work herself. And that's why she was so ready to call me out on it. She had spent years in therapy working on imposter syndrome. And you can only imagine how much that's scaled up when you're one of the biggest stars on earth. There are things that Kelly and Katy have going on that I'll never understand. But she did understand that one. And she was like, "You need to do some work on that." It kind of was the beginning of me doing some therapy on imposter syndrome and finally realizing that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so, do I have pinch myself moments? Of course. We're on set at the Kelly show, and just the craziest celebrities are there, and you're meeting these people that like you only see on television, and you're getting to play music with some of them. I've gotten a lot better in the last couple seasons. When I go home, I leave work at work and I drive home and see my family, and I realize like I am the guy for this job, and we built the band, and I and Jason and Kelly, we built the musical aspect of that show as a team, and so I'm very proud of that. I don't really do that as much anymore, as far as not being able to believe it. I actually do believe it, but it's only because I've done a lot of work. When you have hardship and you live your days rising above more challenges than most people have to deal with, you can enter a mindset of you have so tuned that muscle of like having to be better than everybody else. It can be hard to have grace for yourself. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. I'm never ashamed of showing emotion, but the truth is like learning how to love yourself and just be take it easy on yourself. Life provides you with the challenges. Sometimes driven people, Perry, like yourself, to myself to a degree, Lori yourself, we can be our own worst enemy because we're so used to fighting uphill, and we blah 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 that like I'm like, let life give you challenges, but give yourself the love and the grace, and that balance, I think helps us get up every day and keep moving forward. But if life is kind of beating you up and then you're beating yourself up, oh my gosh, I've lived that way and it's really dark. Harry, you've accomplished a lot, and sometimes you need other people to help speak that into you. That's part of what some of the therapy I did for imposter syndrome was about. My therapist would get going about how when he saw my file, he was a little intimidated to start working with me because of some of my achievements, and that just tickled me. But he would regularly make me cry anytime he would either praise me or compliments or whatever. I really struggle with that, and I think it's a type of personality when you've overcome a lot. It kind of drives you crazy to get complimented because you're not convinced that it's the truth.